Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. IRS, Treasury disbursed $2 million more economic impact payments under the American Rescue Plan. VA beneficiaries bring total to approximately $159 million as payments continue. IR 2021-86, April 14th, 2021, Washington. Today, the Internal Revenue Service, the U.S. Department of the Treasury, and the Bureau of the Fiscal Service announced they are disbursing nearly 2 million payments in the fifth batch of economic impact payments from the American Rescue Plan. So it looks like here the IRS is tooting their own horn about the economic impact payments, EIP3, and when the IRS toots its own horn, it looks like money just shoots out of the horn, apparently. So once again, 2 million payments in the fifth batch of economic impact payments at this point in time. So we're in the fifth batch. We're talking about EIP 3, not to be confused with EIP 1 and 2. EIP 1 and 2 you can kind of group together in your mind. The current one, however, that is going out is the economic impact payment 3. They've been sending them out in batches. They started off with the ones that I believe would be the easiest and the ones that the IRS can get out into the economy as quickly as possible, and also the ones that allow them to toot their own horn, a little bit faster. That would be to people that filed the tax return and the people that have the direct deposit type of information. They continued on to then issue the checks out by mail and the debit cards. They then tried to work with other types of departments, such as the Social Security Department, to pick up people that don't file the tax return, but which they can work with these other departments to send out the information, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't got it at this point in time, fifth batch should have gone out at this time, continuing on. Today's announcement brings the total disbursement so far to approximately 159 million payments, with a total value of more than $376 billion since these payments began rolling out to Americans in batches as announced on March 12th. The fifth batch of payments began processing on Friday, April 9th, with an official payment date of April 14th, with some people receiving direct payments in their accounts earlier as provisional or pending deposits. Here is additional information on this batch of payments. In total, the batch includes nearly 2 million payments with a value of more than $3.4 billion, more than 320,000 payments with a total value of $450 million went to Veteran Affairs VA beneficiaries who receive compensation and pension C&P benefit payments, but who don't normally file a tax return and don't use the non-filers tool last year. So this is a big constituent that, we've been concerned about here, that we want to make sure that I'd like to see the payments go out here. So we have then, once again, the 320,000 payments with a total value of $450 million went to the Veteran Affairs VA beneficiaries. So note, if you haven't received the payment and you're in that group, then possibly, hopefully, they went out in this round. If you know someone else that's in that situation, but they have already received a payment, it possibly is because they either filed a tax return or they filed that non-filer tool that was available in the prior year as these payments processed at that point in time. So nearly 850,000 payments with a total value of nearly $1.6 billion went to eligible individuals for whom the IRS previously did not have information to issue an economic impact payment, but who recently filed a tax return. So remember that the EIP 1 and EIP 2 should have gone out prior to this, and the remedy for those first two, EIP 1, EIP 2, if they were incorrect, would be to file the 2020 tax return and do the recovery rebate credit. However, if the IRS doesn't have your information at all, you may not have gotten EIP 1 or EIP 2, or if some circumstance had changed, the EIP 3 isn't tied to the recovery rebate credit, but if you've never filed before and the IRS doesn't have any other way to pick up your information, such as VA payments or something like that, or Social Security, then you're going to have to file the tax return. Typically for 2020 would be the easiest thing to do. There is free file software to help to do that so that the IRS has the information on which to base the payments to go out. So this batch also includes additional ongoing supplemental payments for people who earlier this year received payments based on their 2019 tax return, but are eligible for a new or larger payment based on their recently processed 2020 return. This is the other thing that's predictable but quite weird, a little bit unusual, and that is that, remember, the EIP1 and EIP2 were prepayments went out before the tax return in 2020, even though they're tied and are prepayments of the recovery rebate credit tied to 2020, they were based on 2019 or 2018 information in order to send them out as soon as possible. Then there was a remedy on 2020 with the recovery rebate credit. Now, this one that's going out, it's going out early in 2021. They would like to do the same system, tie it to the 2021 tax return, making it a prepayment of the recovery rebate credit, not to be filed with the 2020 taxes, but with 2021 taxes, and they want to base it then on whatever tax return has been entered. Now, of course, 2020 hasn't been done by a lot of people because they extended the deadline, so they might only have the 2019 information. However, 2019 is before all the problems happened, so it's quite possible that your income is high enough in 2019 that you wouldn't qualify for the EIP credit. But if you had filed the 2020 return, you would, because your income went down substantially, possibly from 2020 due to the problem. And of course, those are the types of people that the payments should be going out to, are the people that, had a lower income in 2020 that, had no way to really expect that from 2019. So then the question is, well, what do I do about that if I haven't filed 2020 and you didn't send me an economic impact payment because you based it on 2019 and it's a prepayment, and the thing happened in 2020? Well, then you can file a 2020 tax return. Do you have to put anything on the 2020 tax return related to the round 3 economic impact payment in order to possibly qualify for it, due to the fact that you're not hitting the AGI or income limitation because your income was lower in 2020? No, you don't have to do anything special with regards to the 3rd economic impact payment, because when you send it into the IRS, they should be able to pick it up automatically, and they're saying that they have been picking it up automatically and send you the difference, basically based on just filing that without having to put anything special to calculate what that difference would be. But for rounds 1 and round 2, EIP 1 and 2, if there was a discrepancy, then you have to file the recovery rebate credit for EIP 1 and EIP 2. So if you're filing 2020 tax returns and you had a problem with all 3 payments, you'd have to file an actually recovery rebate credit to tell them how much money you should be getting for EIP 1 and 2. You don't do anything directly related to EIP 3, just simply file the return possibly with a lower AGI due to the problems in 2020. Then the IRS should give you this catch-up, as I believe they're calling it, payment from that point. If there's any problems after this, and if they send any other EIP payments and there's problems, the ultimate catch-all will be just like for the 2020 recovery rebate credit, that in 2021 you'd have a recovery rebate credit you would expect. But that's a ways off, so they're trying to remedy the situation before that happens. So this batch includes more than 700,000 of these, quote, phase up, end quote, payments, with a total value of more than $1.2 billion. Another 72,000 payments went to Social Security beneficiaries who don't file a 2020 or 2019 tax return and don't use the non-filer tool last year. Overall, this 5th batch of payments contains nearly 1.2 million direct deposit payments with a total value of just under $2 billion and nearly 800,000 paper check payments with a total value of over $1.4 billion. In addition, additional information is available on the first 4 batches of the economic impact payments for the American Rescue Plan, which began processing on April 2nd, March 26th, March 19, and March 12th. There's a link to those dates here. A larger percentage of payments was made electronically during this round of payments than during previous rounds, so they're proud of that, it seems. They got more out on the electronic payment side of things. This accelerated the delivery of payments to millions of American families whose payments would otherwise have been sent by mail. Over 95% of all Social Security beneficiaries have been paid electronically during this round of payments, compared to 70% in the first round and 72% of the second round. So way better. They're doing way better on the electronic payments. So give them a round of applause, por favor. So for IRS, the IRS will continue to make economic impact payments on a weekly basis. Ongoing payments will be sent to eligible individuals for whom the IRS previously did not have information to issue a payment, but who recently filed a tax return, as well to people who qualify for, quote, plus up, end quote, payments. Special reminder for those who don't normally file a tax return. So if you don't normally file a tax return, this is a reminder for you. Although payments are automatic for most people, the IRS continues to urge people who don't normally file a tax return and haven't received an economic impact payment to file a 2020 tax return to get all the benefits they're entitled to under the law, including tax credits such as the 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit, the Child Tax Credit, and the Earned Income Credit. So if you haven't gotten any of these payments or whatnot, it's possibly because you haven't filed and the IRS has no other way of knowing who you are and whatnot. And they don't have this non-filer tool that they were trying to do last year. So if you haven't did that, you missed that opportunity. But there are free softwares out there that you can basically use to file the 2020 tax return. And then you can use that once again to pick up the round 1 and round 2 with the recovery rebate credit on the actual tax return, actually calculating that as part of your, quote, refund, even though it's not really a refund if you didn't owe any taxes. It's more like a benefit program. And then when you file the tax return, the IRS will know about you and they can send round 3 out, even though it won't be specifically addressed on the tax return. Hopefully, that's how I envision it to be taking place based on my interpretations of the stuff. So filing 2020 tax return will also assist the IRS in determining whether someone is eligible for an advance payment of the 2021 Child Tax Credit, which will begin to be disbursed this summer. So now they're thinking about these advance payments are getting pretty confusing. So now they're thinking about the advanced child tax credit to be sent out early. So that'll be good. Can't wait to talk about that one more shortly, which I'm sure we will. So for example, some federal benefits recipients may need to file a 2020 tax return even if they don't usually file to provide information the IRS needs to send payments for a qualifying dependent. Eligible individuals in this group should file a 2020 tax return as quickly as possible to be considered for an additional payment for their qualifying dependents. People who don't normally file a tax return and don't receive federal benefits may qualify for this economic impact payment. This includes those experiencing homelessness, the rural poor, and others. Individuals who don't get a first or second round economic impact payment or get less than the full amounts may be eligible for the 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit. There's a link to that here. Or they'll need to file a 2020 tax return. See the special section on irs.gov claiming the 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit. If you aren't required to file a tax return, there's a link to that here. A free tax return preparation is available for qualifying people. If you're interested in that, there's a link to that here. The IRS reminds taxpayers that the income levels in this new round of economic impact payments have changed. This means that some people won't be eligible for the third payment even if they received a first or second economic impact payment or claimed a 2020 Recovery Rebate Credit. So meaning if your income level is the same, then it's possible you could have qualified for round 1 and round 2, but not round 3, because round 3 has lesser of a cap, has a smaller cap, or the cap is shorter, down lower cap on the income level. So that's, so you might not qualify if your income level is above where the cap is. So payments will begin to be reduced for individuals making $75,000 or above in adjusted gross income, $150,000 for married filing jointly. The payments end at $80,000 for individuals, $160,000 for married filing jointly. People with adjusted gross income above these levels are ineligible for a payment. Individuals can check the Get My Payment tool on irs.gov, the IRS website, irs.gov. to see the payment status of these payments. Additional information on economic payments is available on irs.gov. There's also a link to that here, and there'll be a link to this in the description.